Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from Dynamic Boards, and we advertise all the non-executive board roles from right across the UK. Today, I'm speaking with Peter Brown. Peter is the chair of the South Kilburn Trust, and they are recruiting at the moment for a chair, a treasurer, and a company secretary, three voluntary trustee roles. So, Peter, do you want to kick us off by telling us a bit about what the South Kilburn Trust do?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So I was going to start by talking about South Kilburn, the place, and then I'll talk about South Kilburn Trust, the charity. So just to talk about the place, because that's a really important part of why we exist and what we do, got the context of the area. We're South Kilburn. We're the lowest, the most southern part of the borough of Brent. So that puts us in northwest London. We are just above Maida Vale. We're just to the west of St John's Wood. We're just below Queen's Park, and our area is about 9,000 people, large, and we've come from a 1960s built council estate, so a very concentrated social housing estate, quite poor quality homes, and quite physically disconnected from those other areas that I described earlier, our neighbouring areas. That is changing thanks to a 15-year physical transformation led by Brent Council. So one of the biggest physical regeneration projects in England. We're about halfway through, I think, still. So there's still cranes, there's still construction. Our area is changing quite fast. However, the deprivation and the kind of disproportionate impacts that many of our residents, many of the residents and communities of South Kilburn have experienced historically. Some of those still remain. So today, although the pitch is changing, many of our residents, if you take the deprivation indices, many of our area is in the top 20 of the top 20% in England of those. So the most 20% deprived, and on some measures we're in the top 10 deprivation, particularly disadvantaged, thinking about household income, thinking about workplace skills and kind of work readiness, and also health and disability are quite important measures in our area as well in terms of disconnection from and sort of disadvantage. So that's some of the history about why we exist. Big physical transformation led by the council. South Kilburn Trust, moving on to what we are and what we do, really I think exists to work alongside that physical transformation, to really think about the socioeconomic, how to improve that, how to make people's lives better in the area. The physical area is changing, but we're also looking at how to regenerate and how to support all of our different communities and families. In terms of talking about how we actually do that, primarily we do that through leveraging our property asset. We manage a really important and much loved local community centre called the Granville. So over the last 5 or 6 years that we've been managing that area, that space, we've run community centre. We run a community centre. Some of those are services that we run ourselves. Some of those are lettings to local groups to run things that are important for our community. So it's everything from coming together for worship, coming together for parties, kids clubs, homework clubs, craft clubs, older people's luncheons, quite a lot of food related activities in our building, which is a great way of bringing people in and connecting.
I'm sure the board like to join for those ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And alongside that community space, we also run an affordable workspace. So we've run an enterprise hub there. We're continuing to do that in our new space. I'll talk a bit later about our new space. So again, within our affordable workspace, all kinds of ventures, small, medium sized businesses, freelancers, entrepreneurs, and a fantastic array of different kinds of businesses supported. So everything from creative businesses, interior designers, makers, crafts. We have a couple of education providers. We have a care provider business based there, and quite a lot of music as well. So record labels. We have a recording studio in the basement. And again, food really strongly represented there. So quite a lot of food ventures. So yeah, the idea is that centre really brings to life our mission. That's not the only thing we do, but much of what we do is delivered through the Granville. That's changing. I can talk about that in a moment, but yeah, that's a bit about who we are, where we're based, and what our mission is.
That's super. So the rest of the area is going through this physical regeneration. What about the Granville and that building itself?
Yeah, we are not excused from the physical transformation. So our site is called the Granville, and next door is another different community building called the Carlton. The council has led and brought forward a physical transformation of those two sites, the Carlton and the Granville, and it's creating again about halfway through the project, creating better space, newer space for some existing charities and council services. So there's going to continue to be a council nursery. There's going to continue to be a family centre, and there's going to be new space for South Kilburn Trust. So we are, really looking forward to taking on new space. The space is bigger. The space is better because it's purpose built for our needs and fitted out. So it's a mixture of an old building, refurbished and brought up to date, alongside some new assets on the same site. So we'll have some new community halls, which we're really looking forward to. As I said earlier, those halls really bring together our communities for all different kinds of purposes. So new halls to manage, new space to bring to life, everything and anything that's important to our communities and to the people who live here.
Wow, that's incredible. That sounds great. Thank you for giving the history of South Kilburn as well. I didn't know a lot of that, and it's really interesting thinking about where you're bordering and some of those incredibly wealthy areas around you as well. So that's a curious demographic. What's the demographic like in the area in terms of ethnicity as well?
Yeah, so really diverse. So really diverse range of backgrounds. About a third of our community is migrants in some form, some quite recent and some long-standing. We have a large population of Black community members. We also have some other different kinds of ethnicities as well in represented where we are. So yeah, really diverse. And yeah, I think the other thing to sort of talk about is it is changing. Our area is altering quite fast, and that's bringing new and different people into the community as well, which is welcome. So yeah, really diverse place to live and to work.
Awesome. So your job is chair of the trustees. So tell me a bit about the governance structure behind the South Kilburn Trust.
Yeah, so we're a charity and a company, like many charities. So our trustees are both trustees of the charity and directors of the charitable company. We have a close connection and have always had a close connection with the London Borough of Brent, because our original reserves that the charity stewards came out of a regeneration program that ended in 2009. So the charity received the kind of remainder of that regeneration grant. That was a 10-year big regeneration grant that kicked off the physical master plan and the physical transformation. We have the rest to steward for all of the socioeconomic activities that are important to us, and so we're looking after that money and looking after our property assets as well. Governance wise, we are at the point of making some changes. So we're bringing in a trading company in the next 6 months, because the new space that we're about to take on at some point, probably towards the end of 2024, the start of 2025, will be larger, and we'll need a different kind of vehicle to kind of make sure that we're able to sort of balance raising revenue from some of the slightly more commercial activities, particularly letting space, letting offices to a number of allied kind of organizations, but not necessarily strictly charitable in that sense. So kind of more mixed picture in terms of how our income is generated. So to address that and to be ready for that, we're bringing in a trading company. So we'll be shortly implementing that. We've got a plan for that, but not fully formed. So there's lots of thinking and kind of making sure that works correctly for us as an organisation, as well as for our mission. We are 8 trustees large at the moment in terms of our board. Fantastic array of strengths, skills, expertise, experience around our table. A really wide range. Really lucky to have some great experience across all of our trustees. I think it's also worth noting that some of our trustees, including myself, have kind of been around for quite a while. So there's a question, really, not a question, but there's a part of what we're doing here is bringing on new trustees. Hence the adverts at the moment and the recruitment exercise that we're undertaking. those new trustees will arrive to supplement our kind of existing trustees and board, and then that will allow, after a period of overlap, some of our kind of longer standing trustees to stand down, or potentially stand aside if there might also be roles on the trading company, for example, because that's going to be a separate entity within our group. So there's some kind of options there, but also some change underway that matches our kind of organizational transformation, I guess, in terms of how we're approaching those new assets and that new work.
It's great that you're going to have some overlap there, so that the organizational memory won't be lost of actually how the things that have been successful historically, then you learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. And you mentioned that there's a community steering group when we spoke previously. Tell me a bit about that.
So that's intended to bring a better insight to our trustees, better insight to us as an organisation. So it's really a way of getting, for me, it's really important because it's a way of canvassing a wider selection of views from our communities, from our customers. We have different kinds of customers represented, but whether it's kind of people that hire a hall for a birthday party, people that come in for a coffee, or people that use our workspace. They're different people, different kind of expectations and understandings of what we do, and also different ideas about what we could do. So understanding all of that is really important. So we wanted to create a community steering group that could allow us to take the temperature on what we're doing, to understand the needs of the communities better, to understand that work, and to be able to feel and be more connected with our communities and the people that we serve. So that's it's not intended to be particularly formal, but it's intended to be a group that can come together, can have its own identity, can be supported by us, but is really important as a sounding board to make sure that we as the trustees have good connection, but also good insight. And I think that's going to be super important over the next couple of years, because certainly during 2024 we're going to be planning exactly how this new space that we're going to be taking the lease for, exactly how that space is going to work, how's it going to be configured, how's it going to be managed, how's it going to be how's it going to work. So that understanding those needs and gaining that insight is going to be really key to make sure that we do the best possible job and to create the best possible community centre and workspace that we can. For me, it's really important that centre is, we already have a really vibrant kind of mix of what happens inside our walls, and I absolutely want that to continue. But I think there's loads more that we probably could be doing, and making sure that our building is sort of in use from breakfast time right through to the evening. It's really important. Yeah. So being able to kind of understand how that mix of uses comes together, as well as considering how does that stack up financially, to create that blend of community uses alongside some of those more commercial uses that support the community uses as well. So how does that all come together? So yeah, hoping that the community steering group can really help us kind of work through that question and drive at the right recipe.
And you're always listening, so that's great through that kind of angle. So so just getting a sense that, okay, you're kind of in a pause period of this sort of redevelopment at the moment. When the new centre goes live again, there's a whole load of activities that can begin that haven't happened before. You're going to be continuing some stuff from the past, some of the boards changing through that time. So actually for new trustees coming in, they've got a chance to kind of shape this going forwards. But can you give us a sense of sort of the foundations that are in place for the next stage of the trust story?
Yeah, so we are in a good position financially as a trust. We've got quite a strong balance sheet and quite strong reserves. So that's important to note. So therefore, it's about how we steward that balance sheet and that financial resource. We are approaching a kind of really important capital project. So some of our reserves are earmarked for a capital contribution towards that capital project. That's already organised and kind of decided. In terms of the kind of some of the mechanics of taking on that space, so the agreement for lease is well advanced. We're ready to almost conclude that probably before Christmas 2023. And yeah, there's a lot of the ingredients in terms of how we're tracking towards that goal of that new centre, the new Granville Carlton Centre, and our role within that are in place. So that's important and encouraging.
Yeah.
We've done a governance review over the last year and an operating model review as well. So the operating model work kind of really helped us examine the different models that were appropriate for what we're trying to do, and that's where the trading company model has come from. But again, there's still a lot of important work to be done to make sure that that kind of comes to life. Ditto with the community steering group. The need for a community steering group was underlined and underscored by that governance review and the work we did talking to stakeholders, as well as building on our own kind of aspirations. But the kind of detail about how that gets supported and stewarded, that all still needs to be cared for and kind of curated. So there's a kind of mixture of lots of things in place, but much of the kind of detail needs to still be kind of shaped and held by the trustees, including new trustees. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement about what we're heading towards. The foundations are there. We're in a good place financially and from a sort of property perspective, but lots of detail to think about in terms of how do we mobilize. I think that's probably the way to put it. How do we mobilize plan, and how do we mobilize heading towards this fantastic new community centre?
Great. And so you're recruiting at the moment for a chair, a treasurer, and a company secretary. Can you give us a sense of what the roles entail and what you're looking for from each of them?
Yeah. So if I take chair first, I think for the chair, being able to both understand our different stakeholders and kind of have that kind of stakeholder map in mind, but also to be able to kind of develop relationships or build on the relationships we already have. I think that's going to be really important for the chair. So that's the sort of outward part of the chair. I think the internal part, the internal organizational facing part of what I hope the chair can do and bring is mainly two things. I think first to help the executive and the staff team. The staff team initially in 2024 is likely to be quite small because we won't have a front-facing kind of operation. We'll be in a sort of fundraising, planning, community engagement mode. So it's a smaller team than we have had when we were operational and when we will be operational again. But I think the chair to work with the staff team and the other trustees to create the culture and to look after the culture of the organisation as we mobilise and as we increase the conversations we have with community, but also heading towards this new asset. I think that culture piece is going to be really important. Make sure we are sort of living by our values, but also sort of showing that more outwardly than we probably have over the last few years. So that's really important. And I think there's the other thing. If that's one thing, the second thing for me is just making sure that the governance of the organisation is looked after and kind of managed and cared for. I think that's really important part of what I hope for from a new chair. And again, there are some changes afoot, particularly around the trading company and how to bring that in whilst also kind of making it fit our mission and continue to feel relevant and right. So I think that's what I would say are the most important things from the chair role. Yeah. Thinking then about the treasurer, doesn't have to be an accountant, but this is a sort of strategic finance kind of position is what we're looking for, and strategic finance kind of expertise and experience is really what we want to bring to our organization. I think recognizing that we need to, like many charities, diversify our income more than probably ever, and make sure that that's carefully managed, and we have a plan for that. For a charity like ours with quite a big balance sheet relative to what we do, again, kind of treasury management and stewarding that kind of cash resource is a job and a task, and again something I'm hopeful that we can get some ideas and input into from a new trustee who can be the treasurer. And I think again from the treasurer there's this sense of 2024 is going to be a unusually kind of quiet year in a way, because we're looking forward to and preparing for that mobilization. So again, helping us think through the systems that we'll need to do a really great job of when we do get the keys and open up the new space. What does that look like in terms of systems and practices? I think that would be the other thing I would hope for from the treasurer. The company secretary focused trustee is really to help us improve and to attend to our kind of regulatory and legal aspects. So yeah, we have quite a lot of property related thinking to do and risk management in that regard. So yeah, I think again, boosting that. There is a lot of expertise already, general expertise in risk management and kind of legal issues. We have a lot of people who have had some exposure to local government in some way, which I think is a fantastic to have. Yeah, really helpful in terms of our stakeholder kind of map. But yeah, having someone who can help with that kind of legal regulatory kind of landscape and help us kind of attend to that and think through that would be very valuable. I think for any of the roles that we're recruiting for, local connection is welcome, or an understanding and sort of affinity for either our mission or the kinds of communities that we serve, or both. So I think that's also worth just sort of highlighting.
You touched before on the sort of diversity of the area that you're serving. So I'm guessing it would be fantastic to see some people from those kind of backgrounds applying, particularly from people from Black, Asian, minority ethnic kind of backgrounds. Any other perspectives you'd love to encourage to apply?
Yeah, so as well as encouraging candidates from BME backgrounds, like most like most boards, I think we would welcome as well candidates with disabilities. We'd welcome candidates who are LGBT plus, and we'd also welcome some younger candidates. I think we are quite a diverse board, but I think also having some younger perspectives would really help us too. So yeah, I think all of those characteristics are things that I want to encourage applications from people who identify with those characteristics or in those characteristics.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I know you don't know exactly what these people are going to look like. So if someone's watching this and they're thinking, you haven't mentioned someone quite like me, but I think my perspective would be helpful. I know you'd really encourage them to reach out.
Yeah,
and go.
Absolutely. We've had a good. It's not coming at your question in quite the same way, but we've had a really good experience this year. We've been part of the Boardroom Apprentice scheme, which is a government-backed scheme for English boards. There's a lot of non-departmental public bodies represented, but there's also some charities, and we're one of those charities. So we've had a great experience of having someone with a different sort of background and a different set of characteristics to ours join our board as an observer. So that's been a really interesting experience to support that process, but also to support board development of board members more generally. It's been fantastic. So I'm very keen to kind of continue all of those kind of work and to kind of reflect, as you say, our communities and the people whose mission, the people who can benefit from our mission is really important to have those kind of voices and perspectives represented on our board.
Yeah, thank you. And to get a sense, so could you be doing one of these trustee roles alongside a full-time job? Like when are your board meetings, and how does that fit in for those? Have you got some of those people on your board already who are managing that?
Yeah, we absolutely have. Like lots of us work full time. So our board meetings are in the evenings. They tend to be sort of 6 till 8. We have a board meeting every other month. In terms of kind of other sort of business, if you like, that a trustee might need or want to undertake, we can be really flexible, and we kind of always have, recognizing this is a voluntary role. So yeah, I think it's absolutely possible to undertake this alongside full-time work, because we can be flexible and because there are ways to sort of make that manageable. In the materials, that's the advert, we've suggested 20 days a year. It's a guideline. I mean, some people might be able to give more, and that's great. Other people may only be able to give a little bit less. I mean, I would treat the 20 days a year as a guideline. It is quite a important commitment, of course, being a trustee, because it's an important role for us as an organisation, but there are also the legal duties associated with it. So it's a serious thing, but I think at the same time, we can absolutely do what we can to make it achievable alongside other commitments, whether that's work or other responsibilities.
I also have sympathy for organisations trying to guess how much time a role entails, because quite a lot of the time you're doing things in between, and it's scattered work. So it's really hard to say how many days it is. But the key thing is you're going to need to have the passion for what South Kilburn Trust are doing to be able to have sort of the energy and desire on top of your other work, caring responsibilities, whatever else you've got going on. Give the commitment that's needed here. So that's clear. Peter, finally, what excites you about the next stage of the trust's journey?
Well, for me, it's about how do we continue to deliver our mission? How do we continue to work alongside the physical transformation that we can see? We can see the parts of South Kilburn are still a building site, but the area has come a long way over the last sort of decade, and there's a distance still to travel in terms of the physical. But for me, the exciting part is how do we, as the trust and the local place-based charity for that area, how do we continue to serve and deliver our mission to serve the communities of South Kilburn in different ways. So we're doing that in a new way. We're about to do that and build on the work that we've already done in other buildings, but we're about to do that in a more kind of in a longer term, more I don't want to use the word professional, but a more sort of systematized, solid way. We've always, for the last decade, as the trust, we've always occupied buildings that are slightly sort of left over. We used to work out of we used to provide workspace, for example, out of a former council office that got repurposed into a workspace. That was fantastic, and we delivered some amazing stuff from there, and there's some amazing outcomes were achieved from that building, and I'm really glad that we could use that empty building in that way. But now we're about to get the keys. It feels like we're getting the keys to something kind of proper and a bit more grown up, which for me is really exciting. Yeah. So it's about how do we leverage that kind of asset for the next 20 years or more to make sure that we're really being able to deliver great services that people need and want for those that live and work in our area.
Thank you, Peter. That's great for anyone that's thinking about applying. They've learned heaps about the organisation through the advert, but I think a lot more through this video. So thank you. And Peter has said that if you would like to get in touch, he's happy to have a conversation with anyone who's thinking about applying and has any questions or just wants to have a chat beforehand. Peter, thank you for your time, and good luck to anyone that's considering applying for the role.